Hi everybody. I want to show how to do this ornament because I've had a lot of people asking. I gave a silly little tutorial with no words, just a little video, and it's not quite enough if you're not familiar with the app well enough. So I thought I'd do a real tutorial, and I'm going to give people just 1 minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show these, and then I'm going to show, so I want to get that part kind of done quickly, and then I'm going to show how I did the background. And so if people want to bail before that, then they'll have the ornament at the beginning, and then I'm going to just discuss a little bit how I did this other much more vintage illustration. The other thing that I'm doing is a little bit different from most of my Instagram lives. I'm using brushes from my class. So this is going to be initially focused on people who have my brushes from my Vintage Ornament Skillshare class. And at the end, I will talk about what you can do if you don't have those brushes. And you should still be able to make something like this without those brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi everybody. I do take breaks and look at questions along the way. I try to do it every few minutes. So if you are confused about something, or if you joined late, I'll try to remember to go ahead and remind everybody what we're doing here. Yay, Sarah, you made it. You changed your lunch break. And I see Brenda. Everybody, yay. 24 people. That's kind of a record for these things at the start. People must be excited about this ornament. So I'm going to go ahead. Instagram Live doesn't let me lock focus with my iPhone, so I can't lock the lighting or the focus. So I have lightened my background a bit because it doesn't do so well with a super dark background. I am going to turn off all that mess, and I am also going to turn these off. I just got them grouped. I guess I don't need that. So I am starting on a layer. You can do lots of different things with your background. So I preferred blue, and hopefully that's showing up. I'm going to keep checking my screen here to make sure that the lighting is okay. And oops, I didn't go to the right brushes here. So if you go to the ornament class brushes, to the stamps, you can do any shape you want. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the one that I had on there initially. And then this part can be any color you want to, because this isn't going to show. And I'm just going to do a pretty big one so it's easier to see. All right. And then we can turn that off. Let's go ahead and actually put our cap on. So let's go up 2 rows up and find a cap you like. I was using this cap number 2 in the demo, or in the other illustration. And I go to a kind of a golden rod, we call it in the States. It's kind of between yellow and orange. Hopefully that's showing up well on the screen. And then go pretty dark. So it's like a super dark brown. That's actually going to be hard to see on the blue. And then we're going to find a good size that looks good with. My pencil at an angle didn't do so well there. Yeah, can just play around with size a little bit. This part isn't too important. And then let's turn that off. All right, so we have our ornament. This is the part, if you don't have these brushes, I'm going to show you how to do an easy ornament at the end of class. Turn the ornament off, and then tap on that same layer and tap select. And you should see everything is hidden except for where your ornament is. And then you're going to go to a new layer, so an empty layer. You might not be able to see, this is my cap layer right here. Oh, you can see it. Oh, good. So I'm going to an empty layer. Doesn't matter if it's above it or below it, as long as this layer is selected. Everything you do is just going to be contained here. So let's go to a nice creamy yellow, kind of a really close to white. And again, so I'm going to use my Larapuna, so in the ornament brush category, Jen's Soft Larapuna. I've just made some changes to the regular Larapuna. I don't like the regular Larapuna for this work, but you can go down to Jagged Brush in the inking. Is it inking? No, it's not inking. You could go to Jagged Brush in the painting section. Jagged Brush. That works really well too. All right, so Soft Larapuna on a nice creamy color. And I didn't use a photo reference for this. I usually do use photo references. So if you want to try to find a photo reference to see exactly where everything would be kind of focused and highlighted, oops, I'm going to go to a really small size. I'm going to just kind of paint around the edges, just a little bit. I'm going to go slow here and keep peeking up on the screen and see if it's looking okay for you guys with this camera. Hi, Veronica. Okay. So this part can be as bright or as faded as you want, and it doesn't need to cover the whole border. And it can go maybe brighter in some areas and more faded in other areas, but we're just kind of blobbing on some color right now. I like a painty look, so I use textury brushes. I rarely use the airbrush, but you could really use just about any brush with this. The reason I don't like the regular Larapuna is because it has some color variations in it, so I just don't like that for this work. I'm going to tap and hold the smudge brush so that the same brush is now selected for smudging. And I'm down to about 20%. And again, this part you can smudge as much or as little. It really just depends on the overall look you want. So I'm really not filling in this area here. And what I'm thinking about as I smudge is just having some brighter areas where they aren't smudged so much, and some more faded areas. You're going to be surprised at how easy this is. Veronica was so excited that she was able to do this. It's really fun to just find something that you didn't think you'd be able to do. All right, I'm just looking over at see if there's any questions. Yeah, Veronica, you were wondering if you had to cover the whole shape. Yeah, I don't think you do, and maybe just a faint, like I have it really faint over here. It might be showing up a little brighter on the screen. How did the ornament change to blue? So if you missed the very beginning, I just turned off our ornament stamp. So you turn off the layer and then you tap on it and tap select, but then you go to a new layer. So the program is selecting whatever ornament shape you have stamped, but then you'd never use that layer again. You always paint on all the other layers. So we kind of blobbed some paint and smeared some paint, and I know I'm saying paint and it's not paint. Sorry for all of the artists out there who don't like that kind of thing. And then I'm going to make a little highlight. So I'm still on the same brush, and I just went down to like 6%, and I don't know. This part is, again, just kind of how you want it to look. Maybe a super bright. I like a paintier look. A super glassy look would have nice crisp hard edges, so it wouldn't be so painterly. And I did that on a separate layer because if I decide I want to make some changes to the softness or the boldness of the first layer we did, I won't mess up my little bright reflection there. And really with shiny things, the reflection is what really just makes it. Like an eyeball, once you add the reflection, it just completes it. So again, this is kind of one of those things where I might look at a reference photo to see where those reflections would be. Maybe there would be another strong one down here this bulb shape kind of comes out, so maybe there would be some curved ones. But those are details that I try to stay away from. And I know a lot of people like photorealism, and I do too. I spent a lot of time doing that, and I've also spent a lot of time trying to get away from that and being a little bit more loose. So you can do this in any style. So let's go ahead and deselect it. So you can see how simple, if I zoom in, you can see how blobby and just smudgy, and it's imperfect. And it's going to look great. You zoom out and it looks great. So we're going to focus, so that's complete. We're going to focus on the cap now, and I'm going to make sure that you can see it. So I'm going to wait a minute because there is a lag. I'm still waiting to see if you can see there's quite a lag today. That's interesting. Okay, you can see it. For this one, I just alpha locked it. So you can 2-finger swipe to the right, or you can tap it and tap alpha lock. And I just did everything on this same layer. You could do another layer that's a clipping mask and have the same effect. All right, so if you joined us late, we chose this muddy, we have our hue on this golden color here between orange and yellow, and we went really dark to this dark brown. It's kind of a brassy, it's going to end up being a brassy look. So that's going to be kind of our base color, and we just need to add a little bit to that. So we're going to go over to kind of a medium shade in that circle. I like using the disc, so you'll have to figure out on your own how to get to that if you use the classic color picker there. So I'm just going to add some, with still on my Larapuna, I'm going to add kind of off to the side, but it's filling up like 1/3 or more of this whole width here. And I'm angling kind of with the shape. So over here I've angled more. This part is going to be kind of in the middle coming towards me, so I'm not angling off that side over there yet. And so I'm just getting this slightly lighter shade here. And the same thing up here on the little thing. So you can choose where you want your highlights to be on this, and do the top half of the ring and the bottom inside half, so that they're both, if you have the light coming, it's going to hit here, and it's going to hit here, and it's going to hit here. And then you're going to go really bright, almost to white, and you're going to add a little bit more. I hope you don't hear my tummy growling. It's lunchtime over here. Okay, and then for the bright section down here, it's going to be a narrow piece right in the middle. And seeing it so close up like this, you're going to be like, wow, this is really messy. I also like to do a little bit over on the sides with that medium color, just a tiny bit. And then again, a tiny, tiny bit with that lighter color. And when you zoom out, it looks shiny. To me, it's just like magic. Which brush? So I'm using the My Soft Larapuna brush from my class. You could use Jagged brush from the painting section of the native brushes. If you don't have my class brushes, here's what you're missing. I gave away almost, I actually think over 50 brushes between all of the caps and the ornament shape stamps, and then all of the decorating brushes. It's a pretty fun class. This lesson isn't in the class, but two other styles are. So that is the ornament. Now I want to see where I want to place it, and then add the little string. I always move this base stamp with everything else, because if I ever want to make a change, I want that to be lined up in the right spot. So if I'm making a size change to the whole thing, I make sure I do it all, I do it to this as well. If you're really starting to need some layers freed up, as long as you're confident that you're done with that glass part, you can go ahead and delete that. Oh, I forgot one step. I was like, why do I have this extra layer here? So you can just go to the luminance category of brushes and go to flare. On a new layer, go to white and add some little glimmers. So those are just kind of random for me. All right, so I have everything grouped, and I'm going to just quickly turn on my background and my other ornaments that I have. I made this bigger than the one I originally did, so I'm just going to shrink it down a little and place it a little bit better in here so I know where to make my little hanger. So now I'm going to go back into my group. I could probably just do it on the same layer I did the little glimmer. And I'm going to grab my diamond brush just to match these. You could do it with lots of different brushes. Let's see. I've been reorganizing my brushes and now I can't find anything. So the wide diamonds, and back to a very creamy color. Almost white. Again, this can be anything. And in class I show you how to do a glitter effect, so you could easily do a glitter as well. Veronica, go look at Veronica Morales, designer, her handle. Hopefully she's still here. Go look at what she did. She did really awesome glittery danglies that also went down into the ornaments. So that was pretty cool. I'm just gonna let this snap straight, and then once I do, I can shrink it. I can press my finger to make sure it's perfectly vertical, and then I can adjust the spacing of them. And I do have that end up, it's a little bit bigger than what I have over here, but for this lesson I'll just leave it alone. And then I just played around, I stayed on the same layer, and I just played around with a shape, a size of the same diamond to use as a stamp that perfectly filled up 2 of the diamond spaces, like that, just kind of overlapped. To me, it just looked like little crystals on there, little randomly placed crystals. So as I look at this with my other ones, I see I probably added more paint to the borders of these, so this one looks a little bit more hidden. And it looks like I went even darker on the base color of these than I did here. You could also change the size of that. Because it's all on one layer, that's kind of nice. You can just change the size, move it around. And there you go. So in my other group, I didn't do an entire ornament in its own group for each of these ornaments. So you can see here, hopefully, I did, because the other 3 ornaments aren't overlapping, I just did all 3 on the same layer. So I just have one group for all 3 ornaments. All right, so that is the ornament. Ooh, 20 minutes, not bad. Any questions about that part before I talk about the background? I know sometimes people struggle with what to do with backgrounds. I'm just going to check and see if there's any more questions. Another thing that you can do if you want a more painterly look on the outside edge is once you're done, you can go ahead and smudge without the selection on. you can just use the smudge and just kind of give a painterly look to the whole thing. But I'm not sure if it'll still look too much like glass. All right, so for the background, let me turn these off. Hopefully this lighting is going to do okay here. I chose a brush called Gloaming, and it wasn't the best choice. It was too transparent, and I had to duplicate the layer a bunch of times to get this to be a little bit more solid. I was playing around earlier with a bunch of brushes in the inking section, and a lot of these work. They're really fun and painterly, like Inca. And then was there some, not painting, yeah, I think mostly just in the inking section. And I basically did 3 major branches here. There might be one in here. And I did a really sloppy tree. Branches, I guess, pine needles, fir needles, whatever you want to call them. So that just up in the corner is what I did there. And then I used my soft crayon brush for some of the background elements. Really faded here. Hopefully you can see those on the screen. Just some lighter blues and some golden colors. And I have 2 layers behind the tree, and I have 2 layers in front of the tree. This layer is really kind of like lights on the tree. And then, oh, well, that layer is too. So I just made one of them smaller. One of them is blurred, and one of them is just kind of smaller because it's not blurred. And just to give it a brighter look. I have a different Instagram live, so in my IGTV, that talks about how to make really cool Christmas lights. So I didn't do that here. I didn't use the ad. I didn't want it super duper bright, but you could really do some fun Christmas lights on here as well. So that's all I did. And then I also did a blobby painterly background probably with my soft Larapuna brush. So that is all just kind of personal preference. And I just went to the blues and went to some super darks. It depends on the color your background is. And I do, whoops, I gotta actually turn a layer on. I do a lot of blobby, let's do a bigger size. A lot of blobby, I'm gonna go brighter so you can see it. I just do a lot of blobbiness, and then I smear with more blobbiness. So that's kind of my go-to. I do that, and I do it with jagged, not jagged, but Nico Rule too. So that's that. And I had my background layer pretty dark. Hopefully that's not messing with the colors at this point. And that made my lighter blues stand out. If you don't have my soft crayon brush for this kind of chalky look, you can go into charcoal, the charcoal native brushes, and play around with those. I like willow charcoal. And that's it. Any questions on that? I'm going to go over to my more vintage one really quick. For this one, I did exactly the same thing. I changed the shape of my little cap after I stamped it. I erased some of it. And I also, again, used my soft crayon. My soft crayon brush is, it didn't come with this class, but it is in a lot of my classes. It is, I really love it. I know it's in my fruit class, if you want to go grab it. So it gets really big. Let me see if I'm on a layer where I can just show you really quick. So you can do a lot with this. You will see if you take the fruit class, it's really versatile in the fruit class. It's crazy. how much you can do with this little brush. So I did really big, really light, soft crayon over the whole thing on a linear light layer. So it looks like a really light gray, maybe closer to white. And then on a soft light layer, I did the same brush with a dark color. So I'll show you really quick kind of how that looks when I toggle those on and off. So it's not a huge change, but it gives that vintage kind of noise, fuzzy look to it. And then I have my grid brush turned on, but I have the opacity turned way down, and it's on color burn on a light gray. And everything else was, you know, I just drew all of this on a layer under the ornament. And this all I used to make it a more frosty look. I used the soft crayon brush a little bit more on this instead of that painterly look. And I gave it some bright spots and some little bumps of glass this ornament had. I used a monoline brush to draw my hook, and then I used that same technique that we did in this tutorial to do the highlights here. I did those on there, but with the silver grays, I should say. I used my wide pencil stroke, but a lot of maybe charcoaly brushes could be used for this little snowy effect. I used my Lara Puna. Let me turn these layers off. I used my Lara Puna for the berries. And you can see all of my needles are just very plain. If I turn the snow off, there's no texture on those, there's no shadowing, there's no vein down the middle. All there is a dark layer and a light layer. And that's it. I'll zoom in here so you can see. There's details in there that you can't really see in the progress, time-lapse, process video, whatever you want to call it. Work is overrated. I don't know if you guys know, Brenda Bacher and I are like sisters from different mothers across the world from each other. So it's so fun to see you guys posting her work in the group. I love seeing all of it. How long did it take me? Oh, for this one. I don't know. A couple hours maybe. So you can go into Canvas information, and video or statistics. 2.5 hours. But I don't know how that's tracked. So I've heard different things about, because you could be sitting here doing nothing and thinking and maybe looking at brushes, and I don't think it tracks that time. I think it might only be tracking while you're actively working. So you can imagine that things might take much longer than what that little statistic says. There's an airplane going over. Hopefully you can't hear that. Oh, the background on this too. Let's see, did I group things well enough to hide everything? Of course I didn't. Hold on just a sec. And I'll turn off these. They're all over the place. What's still on? Here we go. So the background for this, I did 2 layers. I think when I added this darker layer here, I wasn't sure I was going to like it, so I just did it on a separate layer. So on the first layer, I did just what I was talking about with Lara Puna and smudged. I started with a dark color, probably one of these darker teals over here, And then I just went lighter and lighter with Lara Puna Smudge, 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 blah, blah, blah. Looks like I went darker in a couple of spots. And then I switched over to my damp brush. It's been a while since I've given away that brush in a class because I don't like to repeat so many brushes. So I don't remember what classes that was given away in. But I have a damp brush that, yeah. Oh, and the pine needles on this brush, on this vintage one, I used my detailing pen. You could, or no, I think I actually used my Painterly in my Rosemalling Scandinavian class. It just gave a nice, I'll just do a light one. It gave a nice little way to do thin to thick. That was pressing too hard. You have to kind of practice that, but I liked the little thick ends of the needles for that particular idea here. So anyways, I used my damp brush too, but you could probably get away with Lara Puna or Nico Rule or anything just blobby smeary. There's a lot of them. And then I did a slightly additional darker blobby area. It looks like I may have had everything turned on. Yeah, so the ornament was in the way of, so it didn't matter that my smearing was kind of abruptly ended here because the ornament was blocking that. So I probably had everything turned on at that point. Let's see, am I missing anything? So I just made it a little bit darker down the diagonal there. It was very similar to the card that I used for inspiration. Okay, so it's only 12:30. I wanted to show people really quick, in case they don't have my brushes, just a quick way to use symmetry to make the bulbs, because you just need to make the bulb. But I'm going to look back really quick to see if there's any questions. And a lot of people wonder how I have so much time to do as much art as I do. And if you're newer to my group or just haven't known me long, I used to be a teacher, and I owned my own school in my home. And I had a Montessori preschool with 10 students in the downstairs level of my house. So I closed my school. I had to close for quarantine in March, and since then I decided to close for good. And there were a lot of reasons, but now I'm home. We're still in quarantine. We're not like strict quarantine, but in the States here, things are pretty bad. So we choose to be under strict quarantine, except for groceries. And all of us are able to do work and school from home. And I have a lot more time on my hands. So I've been doing a lot more with art, and I love it. So now you guys are my students. All right, I'm going to go and show you how you can just do a quick bulb without having my stamps. I'm going to turn my background down a little bit because of Instagram. I'm so glad you guys all came. I don't know if you're going to stick around for this part, but if you do not have my brushes, go ahead and start a canvas. I always do like 10 by 10 at 300 dpi or 12 by 12. You could do something smaller if you don't have a lot of layers, but you don't need a lot of layers just to make the stamp. So go to, where am I going? So go to the wrench tool, go to canvas, and turn on drawing guide. Go to edit drawing guide. I'm going to change my line color, where is it, to white just for the video. And I'm also going to change the thickness and opacity. And I'm going to symmetry, and my line color just changed back. And so vertical is what we want. It just defaults to vertical. So that's what we want. And tap done. And then make sure Drawing Assist is on. You can do that within the actual edit. You can turn on Drawing Assist. I think it automatically does it for the symmetry. It doesn't do it for all of them. If it didn't turn it on, you can just tap your layer and turn it on or off here on any layer. And go to a monoline brush. So you can go to the calligraphy section of the native Procreate brushes and any color, and whatever you do over here is going to happen on the other side, and just make your shape that you want. So that part is going to take a little time to get it all perfect. There we go. Make your shape and make sure the shape is closed. This part's going to be covered by a cap, so it's not so important. And then fill it. I might have the slope go in more instead of flare out so the cap can just fit better. Yeah, so that can be your shape. And then you do everything else the way we just did it. So you would turn it off, tap on it, and tap select, and go to a new layer and do the tutorial that we just did. For the cap, I would go to a new layer, turn on Drawing Assist, any color will do. Go ahead and have your ornament on so you can kind of do a good size that fits the ornament. I would change colors so you can see what you're doing. And then just do a cap however you want. I would just do the base of it and then turn Drawing Assist off and then do the loop. You can do a loop and let it snap so it's all perfect, and then you can edit that and move it around, make it a little bigger. This kind of oval loop kind of makes it look like it's at an angle. If you do a perfect circle, it just is, you know, like you're looking at it from the front. So I have a Pinterest board. What am I? I think on Pinterest I'm Jennifer Nichols Art. And I have a Pinterest board for vintage ornament inspiration. So you might be able to, I don't recall looking specifically for all the different tops that are in those posts, but you should be able to definitely Google and find all sorts of inspiration for different cap shapes. These are kind of fun if they're not symmetrical. So in the vintage one where I erased, well, it looks symmetrical, but it wasn't. I erased just kind of by hand, so that wasn't a very good example like I thought it was going to be. All right. I think that's all. No more questions. Let me just scroll through. If you joined late, I showed how to do this glass ornament at the very beginning with my brushes from my Skillshare class. And then I talked about backgrounds and one other vintage ornament that I did, just kind of how I did it. And then I showed how to do this without the brushes from my class. Bye, Brenda. I wish they'd do a brush history. So, thank you, Sarah. So one of the things that I do sometimes, but not all the time, because sometimes I'm so used to using my own brushes that I can recognize what I used. So You can name the layers for the brush you used. That's a nice way to keep track of what you used. So maybe for the ornaments, you can call them Larapuna and so on. Call the layer Larapuna. You deleted the canvas. Okay, I think I scrolled back far enough. If you have a question I missed, type it again really quick because I don't have my reading glasses on and I'm that old. I forgot them out in the living room. So I can see, I'm not that old, but as I'm scrolling through, I'm kind of like, oh, I think I got everything. I think I answered everybody's questions. But if I forgot someone's question, type it again really quick. And if you are watching this later and you have a question, just tag me, comment on the video, and I think that you have to tag me or I won't see it. I won't know you did that. All right, have a good day, everybody. Happy December. I have the ornament challenge. I hate the word challenge for these daily things, but I posted about this fun idea for just doing any, I'm calling it a vintage ornament thing. Your interpretation of what vintage is, like this really isn't that vintage. It can be whatever you want. Just do whatever you want. But use the hashtag iPad Vintage Ornaments. And someday in the United States, we'll be able to actually follow hashtags again. But right now, we can't. So you'll have to physically go to the tagged page. You can tell how much I know Instagram. And look at them directly that way. And then those of you who aren't in the States, you can actually follow and get notified when people use that hashtag. Yeah, really, we can't. There's some sort of limit on, it's Instagram's way of trying to stop the spread of misinformation about the election that's over. So I don't know when they're gonna go back to normal. Why can't you follow? Yeah. Yep. Because they're stopping the spread of misinformation. I don't know how that is stopping the spread of misinformation, and I have given them feedback. So it's good. It's definitely good to not spread misinformation and stop it if they can. I just don't know why that is stopping it. So we can't see anything. You know how you can, on the top of a tagged page like that, you can tap recent so you can see all the most recent posts. We can't even do that. So we can go to the tag. We just can't follow it or tap. We don't have anything we can do to it. So anyways, thankfully the election's over and all the states are all finalizing things, and hopefully Instagram will get back to normal. All right, see you later.